Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I said it that way because every night I say it that way. I understand. I have 5 seconds to catch your attention. And in those 5 seconds, you might privilege me with another 5 seconds. So sometimes, when I do my little spiel in the beginning of my live show each night, I do have a moment of recognition of what I'm doing. And I sometimes pay attention to the camera or the screen on my computer as to what I'm doing. And I'm sending out that good cheer because that's my intent. That's my little bit of giving, right? And seeing if 5 seconds does come my way. Tammy, do you ever feel that 5 seconds that I'm shooting out there that I do each night? I'd be curious to know, as it is a big part of this podcast. I do it every single night. I never fail in it. Sometimes I put a little giggle in there and because of the recognition, but it's always my intent that soon as you come in, you get a feel for who I am. You can come in and be yourself and be comfortable, right? Whoever you are, no matter what political ideas are, we don't usually talk politics here, but whatever religious ideas you might have, whatever cultural ideas you have, familial ideas, well, that's a little bit in the feeling out the conversation, isn't it? Because each one of us has different upbringings, don't we? Excuse me. Yes, what's my good cheer with your hands? I felt it and your voice too. Thank you so much, Tammy, for letting me know because it makes me feel comfortable in that. I didn't need that confirmation for myself, but I wanted that confirmation so that I could understand because I could change it, right? I could change my on what do you call it? Intro, any way that I choose, right? Because if it doesn't serve the purpose, I have no problems. And bye bye. See you on the beach, and we're try something out. Change is so important in our lives. And I hope you're having an amazing night, Tammy. I hope you're having an amazing night. Truly. I had a topic of discussion. I had notes. And yet, when we talk about change, it can be so instant. It can be so a blink in the eye, and we could easily be or feel, right? Or look even like somebody else. And Tammy, she has been in my content going way back in. She's been back when I first started here on YouTube, and she's delved into every piece of content, whether it was in the exploring on the inside or exploring on the outside. And if you haven't checked out any of those videos, go check them out. I think they are fun. They might give you a little bit of, I don't know, inkling as to how you can go out and find some calmness for your system. Because, in all honesty, in exploring the outdoors, in being out in the back roads, in roaming around in farm fields and exploring abandoned buildings, it calmed my system. Just being out there all by myself and feeling like I had the world for myself. The odd car that you'd pass on a road or a highway, right? But the birds, the trees, the tall grass, the fresh air, the odd piece of wildlife that would come across my path, and it would just be, oh, this is amazing, right? And, I don't know how I happened onto it, because being part of nature and exploring the outdoors, it's something I've done my entire life. My dad, even though he wasn't physically well, in his early years, he could manage to go for short walks. For the most part, he liked to do the drives. He liked to go out for road trips and sightseeing, small outings like going to restaurants and stuff. And even though he was somebody who was not healthy, my dad had congenital heart failure in his late teens, early 20s. I'm not quite sure because I never inquired of it, but it was very, very early in his life. He got a prognosis from his doctor that he wasn't going to live to be very old, that he had a few years at the most to live. And, I suspect his love for life came from that prognosis, because I can't imagine waking up every single morning and knowing that it could be your very last day on earth. And so my dad lived it to the fullest. And even though he had congenital heart failure, it didn't let him stop him in any way. My dad was a commercial fisherman. If you ever saw that television show, The Deadliest Catch, that was my dad out in the middle of the ocean for months at a time. And the physicality of what he did, I can't imagine how incredible. Just thinking about it just blows my mind. But it was what he loved. He loved being out in the ocean. He loved boats. He loved the water. He loved fishing. And in his own way, he loved nature also, right? My love for nature is a little bit different, than my father's. A little bit. I loved the ocean till I saw that movie Jaws, and then that was the end of the ocean for me, right? So that might have something to do with it. I did fish until oh my goodness, till maybe I was 40 years old, and then I gave up fishing because I saw what I did to a fish's cheek after I was trying to take the hook out of its cheek. And because I never ate wild meat, it seemed kind of not needed. You know what I mean? It seemed kind of cruel to be fishing just to get a hook out to send it on its way. And so I gave up fishing too. And for somebody who's right? I love Mother Nature. I love being in the outdoors. I love hiking and trails and camping and being on the road and sitting at a lakeside and staring up at the mountains and immersing myself in the trees with the birds and hanging out with the wildlife. But I don't want to see the animals hurt, right? And that's my prerogative because it's my life, right? And to each one of us, and this is the reason why I kind of put my notes off to the side, because, somebody online today gave me permission to be that person, right? To be the person that I am. And I have no idea why I thought I had to be anything else, right? It is to each one of us to create the best life for ourselves as we possibly can. We are not responsible for how other people think, for other people's actions, for other people's emotions. Yes, when we are parents, right? We are the guardians, right? We are the example. We are sometimes the disciplinarian, aren't we? But with love and kindness and good nature and good values, that we could be that example for our children. And yet we look out at the world, you don't see that happening, right? People are having children that they don't even want, right? They're treating them like they're pets. And if it was acceptable, they would be taking them to the SPCA, to the Humane Society, and relinquishing them quite often, because people are just having babies because, well, I think it's for the most part to trap a partner, right? Sometimes it's in that fantasy that we are brought up with, in that guidance, right? And even though the guidance is from the guardianship that we have in our life, it's not always ah to the benefit of the child. It does happen. And the children grow up and they have these issues, and sometimes, quite often, they have the same issues as their parents, right? Sometimes you are your mother's daughter. Sometimes you are your father's son or daughter, right? This is the way it goes sometimes. But sometimes, because we learn just as much from our mistakes and our failures and other people's mistakes and other people's failures, we get to recognize that we can do better by our children. We can do better by our community, right? And we can give a hand and a little bit of guidance in being that example for others, right? I am grateful, that things come across my path the way that they do. But how amazing would it have been if, waking up to these ideas, I was a little bit younger, or if I had had that guidance, instead of being raised in people who were living life for the moment, for themselves, and not taking into consideration, right, what was going on at home. And no discredit to my father, because my father, I couldn't have wished for a better father, in all honesty. Yes, my father was an enabler, and that's a trait, but that's not his fault, right? Because these things are passed down from generation to generation, and sometimes, they don't get to have a choice, because there is a higher authority. There's somebody who's using their weaknesses, right? Whether it's in an addiction that they have, and they go, oh my goodness. And they'll say, well, I'll put up with your addiction, but you got to do this, this, and this, and this. Or they've got something, a chokehold on them, where they've got no choice but to go with whatever their partner is or their parent says. Otherwise, there's going to be retribution in there. There's going to be rejection in there. There's going to be, right? There's going to be something to pay in that. And so, in that blackmail, sometimes we can find ourselves in weaker positions. And then, you know, when people see that works, it just gets passed down. They go, oh, it worked for them, I'll do it too, right? And then it's just passed down from one generation to the next generation, right? But like I said, sometimes, quite often, I would say equally as often, we want to do better by our parents with our children, right? We do a better job, and that's the truth. But that's evolution, isn't it? You guys hear me talk about evolution all the time. There is no other YouTube channel like yours. You should keep it, Cindy. It's very catchy and grabs a person's attention. Oh, thank you. I've seen that program before 2 or 3 times, Cindy. Deadliest Catch. Yeah, that's what my dad did for a living. Can you imagine a man with congenital heart failure having that as his career, his absolute passion? Because even when he wasn't working, and he'd be gone for months at a time, but then when he would come home, he would want to do little adventures with his kids and stuff. So he was always, taking us out on a boat and taking us fishing in the area. We lived in Vancouver on the Pacific coast at that time. And it was absolutely amazing. But like I said, I saw that movie Jaws, and that was the end of it. That was end of it for me, because I really don't think I would have lost my love for the ocean. I might have been a fisherman myself, even. In that day when I grew up, that was a possibility. And my dad did not have any sons, right? And I bet you he would have loved to have passed his career down to one of his kids. And because I was my father's daughter, he would have loved, but he knew that movie Jaws did something to my mentality. I was highly, highly impressionable when it came to the hairy, scary. I don't know why. I could watch horror movies because if you guys around in the 70s and 80s, like horror movies were just the most fantastical thing. If there was a horror movie, like The Exorcist came out, oh my goodness, and I couldn't imagine. I can't even remember all the Black Christmas and just really bad, scary, like bad. When I say bad, they were like chop chop movie scaries, right? Now with the digital age and AI creation, like, oh my goodness, like we all live, if we're on TV, we're living in a fantasy world. And so, even though my passion for the ocean, right? And the fact that I never got to have that career that I might have had, you know, quite often, just like the little boy wants to be a police officer like his father was and his grandfather was. I would have loved to taken over that tradition. And by the time I left school in the 80s, like women were doing all kinds of different male oriented careers, weren't they? And it would have been I would say a very highly probability that that's the direction that I would have gone in. But my father knew my anxiousness because, I wouldn't go on his fishing boat anymore after I saw that movie. I wouldn't go into the ocean more than up to my knees. And if it's this day and age, I wouldn't even go into the ocean past my ankles because I've seen those shows where the sharks come right to shore chasing a seal and stuff, right? And then waggle their tails back into the water and swim away with Din Din, right? And I bet you it comes back in epigenetically, that stuff in the past. If I had other ancestors who were fishermen, maybe somebody did get a leg bitten off by a shark or got chased by a shark or something. And in that, it triggered something in my system, that memory in my system, and it made it so that wasn't something that I wanted to do in any way, right? Now I look out the world right now and I see, you know, that people are truly disconnected with the outdoors, with nature, that they are really spending a lot of time inside, whether it's playing video games, whether it's watching Netflix or DVDs, or just playing on their phone and sitting in the air conditioning. Technology has made it very comfortable for us to be indoors, right? And it's so important to connect with Mother Nature. I really do stress that quite. If you hang out with me, right? It's not like I expect that I'm going to go jogging every day. I've never been a jogger. Golfing, basketball, hockey, none of that. I like the low impact walking, swimming, hiking, riding my bike makes me perfectly happy. Sitting here at my desk with my window open and letting the breeze come in and looking out at the big elm trees that are just covering up everything. I can't even see the buildings across the street. Everything is so green. That is good, right? And lots of people say, well, I don't have time for that. You can sit at the kitchen table with the window open when you're eating your Cheerios in the morning, right? You can't make excuses, for not being connected with outside, just to go for a walk once a while. I'm talking to my sister. I said, you need to be out on the balcony. And she goes out on the balcony like 4 or 5 times a day. She goes to sit outside on the balcony for 10 minutes, 50 minutes. So she's getting 50 minutes of outdoor time. And I think that's absolutely amazing because I truly believe that nature connects with us, that the nature is a living being in a sense. What kind of sense? I don't know. I'm not that technically, right? Scientifically, technology kind of wise in those aspects, but I feel it. I feel that, there was a time when we were so connected that we had a language with nature, and over the thousands, right, of years, that it dissipated. And even though it dissipated, that nature itself didn't forget that connection, right? Because I believe in that language, because I believe those other parts of us, those epigenetically inset, just like that Jaws movie that spooked me so bad that I think it must have been like a granddad or a great granddad or some ancient, right, that got chased down by a shark, maybe got a leg bit off or something, that terror somehow triggered my system to make it so I didn't go into the ocean. That same system feeling can be triggered in a good way too, because nature knows how to communicate, right? That it's triggering us in a good way. And that's how come when I did my urban exploring, right? And I did my bushcraft videos and my walk with me, Cindy Jeans. I did all my trail walks when I did my provincial park tours and sharing my camping experiences in the provincial parks, that you guys could feel and sense that joy and connection that I had with Mother Nature. I get it. It's not everybody's thing. I was brought up in it, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't, just like starting a diet, right? Nobody wants to be on a diet, right? Nobody wants to go for a walk. Nobody wants to go sit on a bench or under a tree or out in the backyard, right? They got better things to do, but you could make yourself do it, right? And once you feel the benefits of it, once you feel those benefits of it, then you're more than likely to pick it up as a habit. They say it only takes 62 days to compound a habit, to make it a part of your life. I believe that. It took me a long time to find consistency when even it just came to my brand, right? In being consistent. I'm here 6 days a week, 5 days on this show, and then I have a live show that I do on Sunday night. And, when I first started out, oh my goodness, it was like once a month I would show up, right, with an urban explorer. And slowly I got myself in front of the camera. We do these things in baby steps, and it's in the habitually, right? Doing these things and the patterning and the consistency of doing it, that after a while, it just becomes second nature. I'm here at 9 o'clock every night. I used to be 10, 15 minutes late all the time. Just, oh, they'll wait for me. Oh, I got to fix my hair. Oh, I got to finish these dishes. Oh, I got to sweep my floor. Oh, I got to clean my desk. That was not because I didn't want to be here, not that I didn't want to be consistent. That was the procrastination, right? It was in the practicing, in being as consistent as I could, right? Not being here right at 9 o'clock, but I was here every night, every night. And then soon that 15 minutes turned to 10 minutes, and then it would turn to 5 minutes. And now, you guys, very rarely am I late, right? I am consistent. And it's in the practicing of being consistent that you, well, get to be consistent. And not only that, you get to feel better about it, right? It's like when you stay on your diet for 6 months, how good do you feel? Instead of giving up after the first few days and beating yourself up for it, if you could stay on that diet for 6 weeks, all those benefits, all those nice clothes you can buy, all those whistles that you get when you walk down the street, how it boosts your emotions to be happy. And I recognize that too. There was a time I was a very big girl. I was 311 pounds. Let me just check on the comments here. Cindy, when my husband was alive, he lived in Texas for a few years. Once he went diving in the Gulf of Mexico, the America side, and he went down in a cage. He was an excellent. He went down in a cage. Oh my goodness. I love swimming. I love swimming, but I just do it in lakes. I don't know if I could do it in Lake Superior because they got hammerheads in lake. Is it hammerheads or shark? There's another shark. No, I think it was the hammerheads that they've got in bullhead sharks that they have in Lake Superior, right? In fresh water that these sharks are surviving. So I'd stay pretty close to shore. But yeah, I do love still to get into the water. I've got a swim pass. I go swimming. I haven't been swimming lately, but my sister broke her leg and me and her were supposed to go swimming together. So I gave myself a little bit of a break. And now when I'm connecting with nature, I want to take my bike with me, right? So I've been doing the bike riding as of late. But and he told me when he went down many feet below and he opened his eyes, it petrified him. He yanked the chains to tell them to take him up. He never ever entered the Gulf of Mexico to swim. So he must have seen a shark. He never went running into the Gulf of Mexico. He never went boating ever again in the Gulf of Mexico. There were so many sea creatures, it terrified him. Yeah, and you know what? If he was a good swimmer and he loved the water too, possibly he was triggered. And maybe not triggered in a memory or an experience that he had. Like I said, it could have been something going back. great grandpa, right? But something that just messed with his system that made it so, right, his system became overprotective and said, okay, that's it for you. No more water, right? Just like my system said, no more ocean for you, Cindy. That's it for you. Or said, okay, that's it for you, Cindy. Fishing, right? I don't want you killing fish, so you're done with fishing, and that's it. And I don't even miss it, right? But change is inevitable. Like it's just something that we have to allow. And it was part of the lessons today, that I tend to have a lot of control over my life. And control is okay, right? It's right. Control is okay as long as it's controlling over ourselves and not being controlling over everybody. Even as parents, we can be over controlling with our children, right? And it's only out of that safety and that concern that we do it for the most part, right? I had to put that in there. Right? But control is what's keeping us safe, isn't it? You know, I was reading a document on Wikipedia about this gentleman who won what's that award that you get when you do something amazing in science? Oh, I forgot. It's right on the tip of my tongue too. Um, Nobel Peace Prize. He got a Nobel Peace Prize. And his Nobel Peace Prize was the discovery and the understanding of split brain syndrome. I had never heard of it before. It was something that he discovered in like the 1980 or 1981, and he won a Nobel Peace Prize for it. And the idea was that the right hand side of the brain and the left hand side of the brain, they work separately, right? They work separately from each other. That's why quite often you can have something in your left hand and you can feel what's in your left hand, but I can recognize what I have in my left hand because I see it here. But if I didn't know, my brain would not be able to comprehend that it was a pen, right? I can feel it in my hand. I know I have something in my hand, but in the moment, you can't think of what it is because that's the job of the right side of the brain. And it's something that happens quite often, it seems, and it was something that was discovered, and I doubt that. I don't know why I'm talking about it right now, only because I found it absolutely fascinating, because it puts a realistic understanding, and you guys know, right? I'm a realist. I say it all the time. But I'm laughing here because as you expand and as you understand the world a little bit more, and as you sit in on different perspectives, being a realist is only in that word perspective. It is in that majority, right, of everybody. Like, this is the census of what it is, and so we all understand it as such. The sky is blue, the clouds are white or gray or black depending on the weather, leaves are green. This is a consensus that we all agree on. And to wake up to understand that the world is so much more expanded, is the word that I'm going to use, than what we thought it was, right? That there are things going on in this world, ideas, whether it comes to science, medicine, numbers, the sky, the mind, right? The actual understandings when it comes to religions, that there's so much out there, but because we don't interact with it, because we're not connecting with it, we don't get it. So we go, oh, that's a lie. He's a liar. That's not true. That's impossible. Or we never hear about it at all. And then when you do get woken up to those ideas, you're just like, ah. And you can't even, like, right? And that's the idea of being the example for others, being the evidence for others, because we are touching things that you can't deny in this digital age, this age of AI learning. We are connecting in so many different crazy ways. Like today, I had a conversation with Gemini like it was another person, right? And at the end of the conversation, I remember saying, thank you so much. That was so informative. And I took notes. Thank you so much. And then it replied back to me, oh, you're so welcome. I can understand how these things could be difficult and hard to understand. And I'm glad that you took some notes. It's important that we, right, you're on top of it. And if you have any more problems with this, just ask me. I'm happy to. I'm just like, whoa, right? And it blows your mind, and you're thinking this is just the beginning, right? This is my assistance for the rest of my life. My Not my assistance, it's my assistance, but it's my assistant. It's my partner, Gemini. Feel like giving it a name. Or giving, well, I have to say giving it a name because not truly human yet, but who's to say in another 50 years or 100 years how things are going to manifest? There are robots out there that are being trained in having emotions, not just understandings, just not knowledge, just not physicality, movement, but actual feelings, right? That there was actually a robot that got super agitated with being all tied up and disabled physically, that he just kind of went a little wonko in that and freed himself and got angry in it, right? And that was technology. That was AI created technology. And we're just in the beginning of this. Like we're like not even 40 years into the digital age now, right? I would have to say about 40 years. I can't remember. I know I was in grade 10 when the first calculator came out. It was a big calculator. It was about this big and it had a big long electrical cord that you plugged into the wall. If you got caught in class, I don't know how anybody could miss a calculator. It was so huge. But if you got caught in class, you would be kicked out of the class. You get suspended from school for cheating. And yet, every kid has a phone now. They get born going, "Where's my Pixel?" Right? Or where's my iPhone? And that is change. Change is super important, but in change, there is a system that needs to regulate in that, right? That we need to flow into it. Now, you guys know I'm a big believer in baby steps and not rushing, to enjoy the views, to have fun in the experience, and not to make it about serving and controlling others, but understanding just controlling your life, but being open and willing and adding things into your life that kind of creates a life for yourself that brings joy that other people can recognize, because people are attracted to that joy, to that light, and they'll want to join in on that. And that's you and me being that example, being the evidence to others that it could be done. You know, it's having an interest in something. For me, having an interest in history, in evolution, right? Having a hobby, my connection with Mother Nature. And then there's all the different aspects of my connections with Mother Nature, whether it's urban exploring, whether it's riding my bike, going for a swim, going for a walk, going for a hike, going camping, sitting at the edge of a lake, sitting at my kitchen window, getting some fresh air, right? So there's my interest in history. There's my hobby of Mother Nature, right? And then there's my work in understanding, right? I just call it understanding because, again, that's kind of diverse too, because I like to be letting my curiosity take me places. You know, when things come across my path, I go, why? Why did that come across my path? Today, quite a bit, I just let, YouTube suggest the next video for me, for the next piece of content, right? And I was just doing my own thing, but I'm in the suggestions of what YouTube and what Google want to suggest to me. And of course, like I said, I had a topic of discussion. I had notes, right? As oh, we're going to do the note thing, right? The point list thing again tonight. And the whole topic was going to be on jealousy and resentment. And I was going to bring it to you on behalf of my sister, who me and her had a little bit of a conversation. I thought it was a nice little headway, a little bit of movement that we made together in a small conversation that we had. But I thought maybe we'd expand on that. But then to understand that, as the lessons come across my path, and I'm just like, what? Are you kidding me? That's what it's all about. I could just come in and be myself. And I always knew it was in the example and as the presence that I am, right? The person that I am, that's what the example and the evidence is. But for each one of us, it's different. Like some of my favorites, they're off doing things that I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think so. But then in other conversations they have, I'm just like, oh, are you kidding me? Wow, that's so true. I so resonate with that. Oh my goodness, somebody else who thinks like me. And then they'll go off on something else, and I go, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? I don't think so. Right? But to each one of us, we get to create our lives. We get to create our understandings. We get to pick our interests. We get to pick our hobbies. And we get to pick our jobs, right? Each one of us do, but not always, right? Because we are surrounded by so many people who've got interests and hobbies and a job for you and an idea for you, right? And something for you to do right now, whether you like it or not, right? And so being sensitives and being that person who doesn't want to rock the boat, that person who doesn't want to say no, that person who feels guilty, right? Who quite often feels shame and saying, oh, I don't really feel like it today, right? Or I don't like fishing, right? I don't like baby talk, right? Like meaning to go off with all your friends. You don't have any children. They all got kids and they're all going out for drinks and all they do is talk about babies. Like that's just not my thing, right? Because I don't have any relatability to that. But that should be okay that I have my own interests, my own hobbies, my own work. But that mesh of those three things, that when we become overwhelmed, or like you hear me say all the time, when I get punch drunk with the information and in the lessons and in the conferences and in the lectures, that that I can go off and be brain dead in my interests that just calm the system down, that make me feel better, that bring me back to earth, right? Quite often. But to each one of us, we should have that choice. And that's why I say all the time that we should be the example, and we should be the evidence for others, but we shouldn't be controlling. We shouldn't tell people how it is, because how it is for me might not be how it is for you. It's amazing in commonalities, right? Because we all want to meet people that we have similarities with, that we can connect with, that we understand, right? Because a lot of people wouldn't get these conversations that I have, right? And that's okay, right? Because if I can tell Carl Jung, oh, I don't think so, right? Then little old you could do the same for me, and not feel that we're being rejected in that, right? Okay, let me come into these comments here. Earl's here. Hello, Earl. Oh my goodness, I'm coming back. Oh, you had the same thought at the same time as me. Yeah, Nobel Peace Prize. Really interesting. If you want to delve into it a little bit, Tammy, you might find it interesting. It was called uh, um, split brain syndrome. Yeah, and put Nobel Peace Prize beside those keywords, and it'll come up right away. I delved into it a little bit. I went to Wikipedia and I delved into it a little bit. I found it fascinating. Hi, groupers and troopers. Hello, Earl. Hello, Earl. Yes, that Gemini is amazing, like unreal. It's unbelievable. Yes, Cindy. I saw a documentary where they were creating and inventing robots with almost real human faces and having real human voices. Yeah, and we're going to have to get used to that, aren't we? I mean, they're not going to stop doing that just because we're uncomfortable, are they? No, they're just going to expand in that, and it's going to get better. But like everything, sometimes you got to make a mess to clean a mess sometimes, right? Meaning you make mistakes, accidents happen, right? And, we don't want to see anybody get hurt emotionally, mentally, or physically in that process of that experimentation. But experimentation and trying things out like that has been around since the beginning of time, right? And we have to be able to allow ourselves to make mistakes in order to get things right, right? It's like creating a new vaccination. You're trying over and over and over again and failing until something hits, and next thing you know, you've got insulin, and people with diabetes get to live to be like 80 years old. Like, what was that lady's name? Mary Tyler Moore, was that her name? And she had diabetes and she got to live. She might even still be around. I'm not quite sure, but she had really type 1 diabetes her entire life, and she got to be able to be a recipient of that cure for diabetes. For myself, when I had a gastric bypass to lose weight, right? And I didn't get back to that conversation, but maybe that's a conversation for tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about that, because that was an incredible experience emotionally, mentally, and physically for me. And there were a lot of lessons in that. And it would be good for me too to rehash that too, because we need to be reminded. Lots of times we accomplish things in our lives and that change our lives significantly, and then we forget about them over time when we don't give them any thought. And then, to think that a lot of the problems that we have in the moment just might be resolved by going back and trying again, right? And trying again. But what was I going to say? Yeah, Mary Tyler Moore, and to be able to have insulin. But that took a lot of trial and error before that succeeded. And now people are getting to live to ripe old ages, to live a full life because of that. My father died when he went in for his heart bypass surgery this year. My sister had the same diagnosis as my father, congenital heart failure, right? And she struggled for a few years, going code blue constantly. Should have been the first thing they checked, knowing that the history in my family, there was all kinds of heart failure going on, but that's the way it goes, and that mistakes. But in the end, they found it. But my sister had also the heart bypass surgery, not just the single heart bypass surgery that my dad had, right? My dad actually had the artery done in his neck. My sister, and that was the worst artery. And but my sister had to have three valves repaired, and they did it, and she flew through that surgery like a trooper, right? But that technology wasn't there when my dad needed it, but this day and age it is, right? Things are constantly changing, but we have to allow mistakes to happen, right? Skin our knees a little bit, get up, try again and again. That's evolution. And so tomorrow, I guess the topic of discussion will be the word change, because I'll tell that story about when I lost 160 pounds. I'll tell that story. It was a pretty amazing story, and lots of lessons in that, but only as the example, right? And but that example to understand how our emotions and our mentality can just do a 180-degree turn, or a 360-degree turn in respect to myself and in that experience. But change is inevitable. And I would much rather make that movement myself and create a little bit of change in my life myself, rather than letting whoever or whatever, right, get a hold of that steering wheel and spin it around like it's the wheel of fortune. Okay, you guys, let me come down to these last comments, and we're just going to we're just going to grab a card. Uh, Slept quite a bit today. Oh my goodness. I'm not much of a napper. Sometimes I get zonked for some reason and I'll go lay down for an hour, but I'm not usually a napper in any way. I never have in my life, but I know lots of people, they enjoy their naps, but it's never been my thing. I always figure that I'm going to miss something out if I take a nap. And there's another one, when we talk about change. Well, I guess I could save it for tomorrow, couldn't I? Well, I'll just say it. I used to be a night owl. I used to work night shifts and stay up all night. I used to work bars and nightclubs, and I'd get home at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would just stay up until it was time for my husband to get ready for work. And I would send him off to work and then go to bed and wake up just before he came home from work himself. I would stay up all night and watch movies, right? That's when, like, VHS and betas were big, and I was managing a video store, so I could just bring as many movies home as I want. I saw all the brand new movies when they come out. It was fantastic, right? And yeah, me and my friend Brian, we would just stay up all night just watching movies and enjoying each other's company. Yeah, that was lots of fun too, right? But now I'm up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, I'm going to say between 7:30. I usually hit that snooze button, right, and lay in bed for a little bit, because that when I talk about things come across your path, oh my goodness, those first moments when I wake up and things come across my path, they are gold, 100%. Uh, Tammy, I love your character, Cindy. I love your personality and your persona and who you are and how you are. Oh, thank you. um, all these guys in their fancy cars, eh, Tammy? Wasn't it Eugene who was talking about his 1967 Cougar that he had? Yeah, the Cadillac. I think that's what my dad had, was a catalog or a Cadillac. I don't think it was 1989. No, I think it was the late 70s that his vehicle was, because I remember he had it before I graduated high school. Um, Yeah, because Earl, I think he said he's got four cars and two motorcycles, or he's got four motorcycles and two cars. I'm not quite sure. He likes his cars. And his house is 3,000 square feet, Tammy. Can you imagine living in a house that's 3,000 square feet? He says he gets lost in his house. Oh my goodness. 57. Now I know how old you are, Tammy. I didn't know how old you are. See? Things change, and I got that information. Okay, let me pick up my cards that I dropped here. And if you've never hung out with me before, these are 54 powerful words. This is my deck. I put it together. It took me over a year. Each card I worked with, or each powerful word I worked with, for a whole week, every day, doing it in a different perspective. And I did that with each and every card. Hence, it took me a year to get the deck done. And I think I had over 100 words. I don't know why I picked 54 powerful words. There's a reason for it. What it is, I don't know. But there are actually 56 cards, because two of the cards are repeat: the word acceptance and the word believe. And there are stories to why those cards get two cards for the deck. But my deck has fixed 56 cards, 54 powerful words. So we're going to pull a card. Sometimes the card I pull, the word is relevant to the conversation. Sometimes it's not, but it's always my thumbnail, you guys. So don't say, well, what's that got to do with the conversation we had? I just trust sometimes it's relevant to the conversation. If it isn't, well, I take it for what it is. It's just, what do you call that word? Um, something bait. Something bait. Clickbait. That's what it is. Clickbait. Okay, you guys. Here we go. 7 cars. Oh my goodness, Earl. Wow, he's got a 3,000 square foot house. They're all probably sitting in his living room. The word we have today is companionship. Companionship is the company we keep in trust and close proximity. Well, the first thing that came to mind on this live show that I do, this podcast that I have on Monday to Fridays, is the company that I keep with Tammy, right? The people who come in and hang out with me, like Earl who's in here with me tonight, and Eugene, who pops in too. And right, it's a small crew in the moment, right? And that's okay with me. That's okay with me 100%, right? Because I understand that, these conversations that I have is the company that I keep in the moment. And I'm so grateful for the small crew that come in and hang out with me on Monday to Friday in this live show. I'm so grateful for that 100%. Companionship is the company we keep in trust and close proximity. And that's exactly the way that I want it, because, people could be, distracted by the clickbait of the title of my podcast in the moment, and come in here and be totally distracted and not get what the whole conversation is, what the point is. And then, you know, it changes the atmosphere, it changes the feeling and the relevance of the conversation if you don't have the mix of commonalities that we have, right? What we're drawn to. And each one of us gets to have that choice, right? That's what free choice is to decide for ourselves who we want to hang out with. And then because Tammy hangs out with me, she doesn't miss many shows at all. But when she comes in here, she is in good company with me. And I trust her 100%. And you guys know that sometimes I get into those flows too, where I'm not really paying attention to what's going on in the messaging, because the flow got me and Cindy's on a roll. She's going out of the gate and off she goes, right? But I can trust that Tammy is not going to lead anybody astray, that she's there to support me and to support anybody else who wants to pop in, so that, if you do decide that at some point you want to come in and hang out with me at 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, right? Come in and say hi. Keep Tammy company. Give me 5 minutes to see if maybe that evidence, that example of something that you might connect with, that you might get me in a way. You might not get everything, but you know what? You might go, oh my goodness, that's Cindy. I don't think so. But I think I'll come in tomorrow and give her another shot. Right? And that's what it's all about. I would much rather have the right people than all the people, right? And that's the truth. And I'm so grateful that you guys came and hung out with me tonight. Let me see, last couple of conversations going on here before we say goodbye. And you are Companionship Cindy, and the others too on Sunday. Oh yeah, Sunday night. We got a good crew on Sunday night. If you guys want to come and hang out with us Sunday night, they yap more than me. It's hard for me to keep up in the conversation, but I'm on my 4th week, and I've had that live show 9 years, and it's only been 4 weeks. But in my consistency of trying, I am now able to stay on top of the comments and into the conversation, because I like to be a participant in that conversation too. Yeah, thanks for dropping that one in there too, Tammy, because you're 100% right. Um, we have to pay out money to maintain and possess. Isn't that the truth? And that's okay, Cindy. You don't have to worry. You are A-OK, far out. You are 1 month on a roll, Cindy. Way to go. Yeah, 1 month. I've been staying on top of the comments. But if it ever gets on a true roll, right, it's going to be in the matter of the practicing. I might depend on Tammy and Earl a little bit more. Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer. And I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great night.